Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his cabinet continue their retreat in Charlottetown. On the agenda today is an update from a pair of housing experts who worked on a recent report on the government's role in solving the housing crisis, including the creation of a new industrial housing strategy. Well, for more on this, we are joined live by CTV News Chief Political Correspondent Vassy Kapelos. It's great to chat with you again. So we're talking day two, and it seems as though it's all hands on deck when it comes to trying to solve the housing crisis. What's the latest update?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And there are, in fact, as we speak, two experts who penned that report. One of them is Mike Moffat, Professor Mike Moffat out of the University of Western Ontario, I guess now known as Western University, who has been studying and researching housing and the nature of it and the nature of the lack of affordability, really, of housing across this country for a number of years. That report that he and his colleagues produced just a few weeks ago makes some pretty bold recommendations and initially characterizes everything that's happening right now as a crisis and it says it requires a commensurate response from the federal government. I just spoke actually with the housing minister here and asked him, is that going to be the case? He said in the next few months, yes, they will be coming forward with some new ideas, some new policies directed at creating more housing, but the scale of the task ahead of them is enormous. The CMHC says there needs to be an additional 5.8 million homes built by the end of 2030 in order to restore affordability in this country. 2 million of those, for example, have to be rental units. So it's a massive challenge. The flip side of this is we're starting to get some noise around what the federal government might do. And one of the things that they're looking at is capping the number of international student visas. International students, the number of them has doubled over the last 8 years and particularly increased over the last 2 years. That's putting a lot of additional pressure on rental housing in cities like Toronto and other big urban centers across the country. And so they're looking at the idea of a cap. More broadly, there are questions being directed at the government, though, about immigration writ large and the pressures that that could be applying to rental housing as well as other forms of housing across this country. Is the government perhaps looking at curbing some of its more ambitious targets when it comes to immigration? Here's Minister Dominic LeBlanc on that.
Everybody's trying to find the right way to deal with access to labor force, huge challenge in every part of the country and essential for the economic prosperity and growth of the country. But we're not insensitive to the housing challenges that existed before provinces asked us to bring in more immigrants to help with the labor force. So you have to be coherent, you have to be coherent a little bit here. But we totally accept that the conversation needs to proceed at the same time so that we don't inadvertently end up in a position that makes the housing affordability issue worse.
So the point is a salient one, that the labor force, which is especially in Ontario and in a number of other provinces really lacking right now, does need immigration. In order to build all the houses that are needed here, you do need a large immigrant population, but not a no from the minister, not a yes on the possibility of whether or not those targets that the federal government set, which are some of the highest that this country has ever seen, will be curbed in the coming years in order to address the issues with housing.
Some very ambitious housing goals, that's for sure. CTV News Chief Political Correspondent Vassy Kapelos, we appreciate the update. Thank you.